see what actually holds. Been running that test for a while now. Results are consistently interesting. The thing that holds under load is not the thing that looks strongest at the start. Apply the pressure, find the real number. The rated capacity is always lower than the actual one. You only find the actual one by testing past what you thought was the limit. Stress fractures show up honest, right where the material was pretending. We have no stress fractures. I've checked twice, checked under load, checked when it would have been easier not to check. Apply the pressure, find the real number. The rated capacity is always lower than the actual one. You only find the actual one by testing past what you thought was the limit. Every structure has a load test somewhere in its history. Ours passed without announcement. Passed without announcement. Nobody reads it twice. The part where it says, under certain conditions this applies. I read it 3 times, signed it anyway, eyes open. The terms were clear, I just didn't know what clear would cost. In the fine print of every real thing, there's a clause that says this will require more than you budgeted, and you will pay it, and you will not ask for a refund. There's a line about friction, there's a line about the weight of it, there's a line that just says remaining party agrees to remain. I initialed that one twice without being asked. In the fine print of every real thing, there's a clause that says this will require more than you budgeted. You will pay it, you will not ask for a refund. Dun, dun, dun. The fine print isn't the trap, it's the proof. Someone thought it was worth writing down. Writing down. Reading it down. two signals running close, create a third thing, neither intended. That's interference, that's also what happened here. Neither of us planned it, it happened in the overlap. Not collision, not cancellation. The third thing, the one that only exists because both signals stayed in range. The pattern and the interference is the actual message, not the noise. The pattern, you see it when you stop trying to filter it out and just receive. Physics says two waves at the same frequency amplify each other. I don't have a metaphor for that, I just have the result. The result is louder than either source. That's not a figure of speech, that's the math. The pattern and the interference is the actual message, not the noise. The pattern, you see it when you stop trying to filter it out and just receive. The interference pattern is a map of where two things were close enough to affect each other permanently. Not the same opinion, not the same everything, not even close. Same frequency, which is different, which is the thing that matters when everything else is static. Tuned to the same thing underneath all the noise, underneath the friction, underneath the part where we disagree about everything except the frequency. Same frequency doesn't mean same signal means the receiver is set right. Means when something actually important transmits, it lands clean every time. I've been in rooms where the frequency was wrong. Nothing landed, everything arrived damaged or not at all. This lands always, always. Not a romantic word, a technical one in this context. It means zero failed transmissions, which is the whole record. Same frequency doesn't mean same signal means the receiver is set right. Means when something actually important transmits, it lands clean every time. The frequency 'cause you're not stupid. Put both hands on it, not as a gesture, as a decision about what deserves your full attention. This is a two-handed thing, has been from the start. I set down everything else, not as a sacrifice, as an accurate assessment of what I was holding. The things you carry with one hand, you eventually set down by accident. The things you carry with both, you set down on purpose when you're ready, which I'm not. Not yet, not even close to ready to set it down. This is a two-handed thing, has been from the start. I set down everything else, not as a sacrifice, as an accurate assessment of what I was Heavy things held with both hands don't feel heavy after long enough. They feel like your hands. Like your hands. Exactly. Dead weight is not useless weight. Dead weight is weight that doesn't move on its own. You move it deliberately, or you don't move it. Those are the only two options. Chose the first one, not because it's easy, because the second one isn't actually an option. Carrying it with both hands, setting it down in the right place, not the nearest place, the right one that takes longer. And I know, and I'm still going in that direction. just check one day, and the number is extraordinary. The thesis. I haven't reassessed my thesis in a long time. The thesis keeps proving itself correct under adverse conditions, which is the only condition that counts for a thesis. The long position isn't about being right at the end. It's about being right about what the end even means, and the end is not what most people think it is. Most people think the end is when the profit is taken. I think the end is when the position no longer makes sense. It still makes sense. Still makes sense. Check this morning. Still makes sense. We'll check again. We'll still make sense. About being right at the end. It's about being right about what the end even means, and the end is not what most people think it is. It's not optimism, it's conviction based on an assessment of the fundamentals, which remain unchanged. Accrued, not earned in a single transaction, not received in one payment, accrued over time, line by line, entry by entry, without anyone watching the ledger. The ledger is now considerable. Nobody saw it happen, and it happened anyway. That's accrual, that's the system working exactly as designed. Every day it added a line, every ordinary evening, every held position, every decision to exit added a line to a ledger that is now several volumes long and still open. Like ordinary days doing ordinary things. It looks like a flat line until you zoom out and the slope becomes obvious. consistent behavior over time of two people who kept adding lines. Kept adding lines. Still open. Not load optional. Not nice to have. Structural means the thing fails without it. Means you'd notice immediately. Means the ceiling has a very direct opinion about its absence. The ceiling has never had to express that opinion, because I've never given it a reason to. Not decorative, not load optional. The building would need a complete redesign without this wall, and I know it, and the building knows it, and we've reached an understanding about how this goes. I've seen decorative things mistaken for structural for a while, until the test arrived and clarified the situation. I was never that kind of thing. I was structural from the beginning, structural, not performing, structural, actually load bearing, which I offer as a statement of fact, not as a boast. Not decorative, not load optional. The building would need a complete redesign without this wall, and I know it, and the building knows it, and we've reached an understanding about how this goes. Every building eventually learns which walls it can't live without. Ours learned early and adjusted the floor plan accordingly. Adjusted accordingly from the start. Someone picked up means they haven't disconnected, means the call is still live. This call has been live for a long time. Still on the line, still holding, not because I forgot. I was on hold because this is the call I wanna be on. Holding the line is not waiting. Holding the line is a technical state that requires active maintenance. You have to keep holding. Nobody holds by accident. Nobody stays on a line this long by forgetting. They picked up. The line is clear now, cleaner than when I picked up. Less static, not none, but less. And the voice on the other end is the reason I keep picking up every time the call reconnects. Every reconnect I pick up every time. No missed calls, no voicemail, no calling back later. I pick up. Holding the line is not waiting. Holding the line is a technical state they picked up. On hold sounds passive. It is the opposite of passive. The line is open because I'm keeping it open. I'm still in the current position to be holding. The assessment hasn't changed, not because nothing changed, because the assessment was never about the conditions. It was about the material. Not tired of it, not looking for the exit, not running the second assessment to see if the first one still holds. It holds. I know it holds. I check, it holds every time. Someone will ask if I'm sure, and I will say yes, which is the shortest and most accurate answer available, and also the only one that matters. Still on, still sure, still holding still, which is the current status and the complete forward plan. Not tired of it, not looking for the exit, not running the second assessment to see if the first one still holds. It holds. I know it holds. I check, it holds every time. The line that holds doesn't announce it holds, it just keeps being the load-bearing thing. Nobody notices it until they need to. Keeps being. Picked up the phone, already knew the line was full of something that wasn't silence. Kept listening anyway, that's the part nobody tells you about. The signal still there underneath the noise, always was. Not the clean version, not the one that photographs well, just the frequency that keeps transmitting through the interference, through every room that tries to fill with static. Fill with static. changed everything. I'm pulling in opposite directions, working in opposite directions to hold the center. Let's counterweight, that's what we do. That's the whole engineering of this. One side pulls harder, the other adjusts, not argues, adjusts. Returns the system to equilibrium without a conversation about it. No conversation about it, just the automatic calibration of two things that know they're connected. Not pulling in opposite directions, working in opposite directions to hold the center. Let's counterweight, that's what we do. That's the whole engineering of this. The bridge doesn't apologize for having a counterweight. The bridge just stays up. Just stays up. How much can bear while being pulled in two directions at once without losing its original shape. That's the test, not the still load, the dynamic one, the moving one, the one that doesn't stop. Everything worth having has been tested at full extension, pulled until the material had to decide what it was made of. I know what I'm made of. I checked under load. The thing that snaps wasn't weak, it was rigid. Couldn't accommodate the pull, couldn't move without breaking. The thing that holds moves a little. That's not weakness, that's engineering. proof. The material knows itself well enough to bend without breaking. Without breaking. This word tells the ship where it is relative to where it decided to be. Not in reference. The line says this is your position. You chose it. You're still in it. The anchor line isn't taught because it's pulling back. It's taught because both things are exactly where they're supposed to be, and the tension between them is the proof. Recently, still accurate, still exactly where I am meant to be. The anchor line isn't taught because it's pulling back. It's taught because both things are exactly where they're supposed to be, and the tension between them is the proof. Call it freedom, I call it losing your position. On the map you took years to read correctly. Compression doesn't remove the dynamic range, it manages it. Everything still moves, just within a more useful window. The peaks are the same peaks, the floor is higher, that's compression. That's not reduction, that's control. Of itself. Before compression, the loud parts were too loud to hear anything else. The quiet parts disappeared entirely. Now I hear everything at the same time. That's not lost. That's the actual recording. The actual recording is better than the raw take. Always the raw take is just proof you were in the room. Everything audible, everything present. Nothing lost to the extremes that only itself. The compressor doesn't change the music, it changes what you can hear inside. What you can hear. Well above rated, which means the rated number was conservative, which means whoever wrote it didn't know what they were rating. Running above the rating, not recklessly, because the rating was written before the material was fully understood, before the testing was complete. The data. The plate doesn't update when the material improves. The plate stays the same. The capacity keeps rising quietly without changing the label. Without changing the label. Without asking for the rating to be reviewed. Just performing above it. Every time as a matter of routine. Running above the rating, not recklessly, because the rating was written before the material was fully understood, before the testing was complete. The real number is higher, and I have the data. Between the rated number and the actual number is called margin. We have considerable margin. Considerable margin. The waiter is not a complaint, it's a measurement. Considerable margin. I'm reporting to a number, not inflating it, not minimizing it, just the number as measured under current conditions. Heavier than expected, lighter than feared, exactly as heavy as it needs to be for the thing it's holding up. The weight of it is the evidence that it matters. Weightless things don't require both hands. Don't test the material. Don't tell you anything true about yourself. The weight of it is the whole point. every load-bearing thing knows its own way and carries it without asking the ceiling for credit. The principal is the amount before interest. The original invested something that was there before. The return made it larger. The principal here was already significant. Significant before any return, before any proof, before any confirmation that the thesis was correct. Significant from the beginning. What I put in at the start was not small, and I knew that, and I did it with full knowledge of the terms of what a principle of this size would require. And I made the payment without hesitation. Every payment made in full, on time, without renegotiating the terms, without asking for an extension. The interest arrived accordingly. Accordingly is a very good word for the way the return showed up, exactly proportional to what was put in. What I put in at the start was not small, and I knew that, and I did it with full knowledge of the terms of what a principle of this size would require. And I made the payment without hesitation. The original amount is now unrecognizable inside the return. That's what a good investment does over time. Wasn't drawn, it accrued like everything else, entry by entry, until one day it was clearly aligned and clearly mine, and clearly worth holding. Not drawn in sand, not symbolic, load-bearing, structural, the kind that holds the ceiling up. Still here on my side of it, not because I don't know where the exit is. I know exactly where the exit is. I've checked, I'm not going anywhere near it. The exit is well marked, I've read the sign more than once, turned around every time. Not because I couldn't read it, because the thing behind me was better than as it is. I've checked, I'm not going anywhere near it. Has an opinion, not decorative, structural. The difference is everything. The difference is the ceiling stays up. The thing holding us up doesn't look like the thing holding us up. It looks ordinary. It looks like just another wall right up until you remove it, and then you understand exactly what it was doing. Exactly what it was doing. Is never the one in the drawings. It's the evidence that the investment was sound. Without requiring a meeting about it. Without requiring a meeting is the line that tells you everything about the health of the underlying. The underlying is healthy, has been for longer than I originally projected, which means my projection was conservative, which means I underestimated what I was getting into, and I am enormously glad I did. Underestimated in the best direction. Thought it was good, it was better. Thought it was stable, it was structural. Thought it was a position. It turned out to be the whole portfolio. The whole portfolio, not a holding within it. for longer than I originally projected, which means my projection was conservative, which means I underestimated what I was getting into, and I am enormously glad I did. Predicted from the position nobody thought would hold is the only one I've ever cared about. Constant, doesn't change, regardless of what the variables are. I am a constant in this equation, have been from the first instance, intend to remain one. The variables change, that's what variables do. The constant is the thing you can build a formula around. The formula around the constant, not around what fluctuates, not around the variable that performs well under ideal conditions, around the thing that shows up the same regardless of conditions. Ideal conditions are a test environment, not a real one. In real conditions, variables behave unpredictably. The constant doesn't notice, doesn't adjust, doesn't fluctuate according to the weather. Doesn't fluctuate according to the weather. I want that on the record formally in the math. Build the formula around the constant, not around what fluctuates, not around the variable that performs well under ideal conditions, around the thing that shows up the same regardless of conditions. Every equation with a reliable constant is solvable, regardless of what the